David Goggins is the mentally toughest man on this planet. He's went through 3 Navy SEAL Hell Weeks in 1 year. He's ran over 60 ultra marathons. And on top of that, he's done over 4,000 pull-ups in 17 hours to break the world record. After diving deep into both of his books, overall just being a long-term supporter since he's from my hometown, I've gathered his 3 best pieces of advice that you cannot afford to miss. So in this video, I'm gonna give you guys the easiest ways to implement his advice into your own life. I'm also gonna show you guys the incredible benefits that I've gotten since I used his advice. And then lastly, I'm gonna give you guys the best piece of advice that Goggins gave me that you can use right now today. Number 1, there is something stopping you from becoming the most disciplined, badass version of yourself. It has a tactical advantage over you. It knows where you're at 24/7, how you feel, little sneaky ways to throw you off your square. It is literally your ultimate op. It is your mind. David Goggins describes the mind's ability to stop us from going through pain and suffering as the governor. Similarly to a car, the governor's main purpose is to stop you from reaching your max limit to avoid any sort of pain or suffering or any discomfort from you trying to get to that point. It is the main reason that when we get exhausted, our mind and body goes into a frenzy, ultimately trying to find a way to escape the pain. Which brings me to one of the best quotes that I ever heard David Goggins say. Life is just one big head game. The only real rival you have is yourself. Let me just give you guys an example of what I mean that the mind will control you. Have you guys ever done the pacer test back in high school? I remember the first time I did this goofy ass test, bro. So come the first day of the pacer test, I got my Kobe's on, I got my little jorts on. I'm thinking this shit's gonna be a cakewalk. These guys have never ran against a guy like me. They don't know how much I want it, how much heart I got. So right out the gate when the guy says, go, I start sprinting, right? I'm burning these boys. I'm like 4 laps deep, just smoking them, bro, right? I'm like beating them every time to the line type shit. So then lap number 20 comes. I'm running hard as fuck. I start to feel my fucking lungs get a little exhausted. I'm like, huh, what the fuck is this? I'm like, all right, well, we only got like 5 more anyways. By the time the 25th lap came, I started feeling lactic acid. Mind you, I never felt lactic acid ever in my life. I'm thinking I'm gonna have an asthma attack. I think I'm about to tear a hamstring because at that point, I never had felt what lactic acid felt like. I never had felt that level of pain before. The other kids that were racing were a lot more experienced than me. They knew off rip that you should not just start running and sprinting out the gate. But me at the time, you couldn't tell me shit. So right before I hit lap number 30, which was like the goal at the time, I dropped out at lap 29. Bro, I thought I was dying. I remember finishing around like lap number 29, right? I was hanging over the bleachers like fucking Jimmy Butler, bro. And it was at this exact moment that I hit my 40%. So the 40% rule pretty much states that most human beings live at 40% of our capability. And once we hit 40%, the mind tricks us into stopping to get to the 100%. And David Goggins explains that many, many times in his books. I've realized how many times my mind has stopped me from doing something that's, you know, a little bit more than what I'm used to. I get caught up on my own head during the process. I lose the 1 second decision. The 1 second I need to make sure I keep going forward, I stop because the mind will tell me something, or I'll end up feeling something, and I just say, you know what, fuck it, and I'll drop out, or I'll stop doing what I'm doing. So since 2022, when I first started studying David Goggins, I've realized just how much I've been leaving on the table. And that's why I found out some easy strategies that allow me to keep being focused and keep pushing past my 40%. Let me give you the first one. Absolute biggest thing you must do when you're in times of need is remember why you started. Focus on what you can control and focus on what matters to you. In times of deep suffering, pain, boredom, the mind is gonna wanna trick you into realizing how much it fucking sucks. The mind doesn't want to go through the discomfort of pushing itself to growth. So what you must do is eliminate distractions in those moments. You have to win the seconds each time. Because when you focus on the why, it's gonna compel you to keep going further. A lot of times when people are suffering, people quit and their dreams die during the process. I've had many people in my life who wanted to be great, who wanted to do great things, but when times get rough and they cannot see the end of the road, they quit midway. Half of the time they don't even know they're just right there, but all they do is just keep pushing further. Let's say I had a hard day at work. The first thing I do when I get out of work is usually go to the gym, right? Sometimes my mind will trick me. It'll say, you know what? You deserve the day off. You deserve to go relax, go to the bar, go hang out with your shorties, do what you want to do, right? I have to consistently remind myself why I'm here, why I'm trying to do this, why I want to be great. And usually what comes back to me is just the idea of what I want for my future. Everyone has their own dream life or their own dream event or whatever you want to call it. So one of the biggest things that pushes me is just imagining me and my family on like some like Bahamas type cruise with my dream girl just for a weekend type shit. Me just enjoying life for maybe like 72 hours for once in my fucking life. I'm just thinking about that and it just pushes me forward because I know that it's not impossible. If there's someone that can do it, it has to be me. Like, if I can't do it, it cannot be done. Because a lot of times your self-talk is shit. Your self-talk is more of a woe is me kind of mentality. You're thinking like, wow, why do I have to go through this again? Why is this happening to me? And it's very easy to get into that mentality. Box breaths and just taking a deep breath overall is a very good way to control your mind. And so Goggins pretty much explains that, like, you gotta find out the different irks that make you wanna propel yourself into action. Like, if you've been bullied before, that sometimes propels you. If you have a dream crush, that sometimes compels you. Hell, if you have just overall, you know, kind of like a hard mentality towards yourself, that could compel you to keep going further. You have to discover yourself. You have to talk to yourself. You have to figure out ultimately what you want to be in this world. Have you guys ever been in the gym and you get done with the set, you're like, you know what, let me check my phone for a minute while I got a break. Next thing you know, you're on there for 5 minutes scrolling on fucking Instagram doing nothing. That's because the mind is very, very, very fucking strategical about getting you off of your goals. You have to become very, very careful and very, very mindful of what you're doing. This is exactly why I recommend you guys to download these time-saving apps like Opal. Just making sure you guys are very disciplined with timers because the mind is so clever, bro. Like, it's crazy. So now that we have an understanding about how the mind consistently controls us, let's break down lesson number 2, where we remember the past to boost the future. Number 2, from the time that David Goggins was born, he was given the worst possible chances to succeed. From growing up in the cold, hard streets of Buffalo to the racist small towns of Indiana, he was introduced to the harshness of life by his alcoholic and abusive father. He would grow to become a very insecure and weak child with a lot of learning disabilities and a perfect excuse not to try in life. David Goggins literally called himself the weakest thing that God's ever created. And that's a wild statement if we look at him now. He wasn't always the stay hard, Mr. Clean, evil Kobe Bryant motherfucker we know him as today. And that's exactly why we need to look into what made him become this mentally tough. His major accomplishments did not come without obstacles. He went through 3 hell weeks catching pneumonia and getting through it still. He was running ultra marathons with broken feet. And on top of that, he's had multiple heart surgeries while still finding a way to outwork all of us. And the crazy thing about all these things that have happened to him, it's only made him mentally stronger. I bet if you ask Goggins where he's at mentally, he probably feels like a 20-year-old. He probably feels like he's at his prime right now. This guy is the epitome of hard work and discipline. These past traumas, these past events would only lead David Goggins into creating the cookie jar strategy. Similarly to when you were in elementary school, when you would come home from a long day of school, you would go into the cookie jar to grab that one cookie which would fuel you into getting your homework done on time. Key thing to understand about the strategy is that even the most badass people on the planet tend to forget who they are during times of struggle. So you have to essentially recall what you've done to get to this point in order to keep going forward. So that's why you have to store your accomplishments, the things you've gone through, because those things will show you who you are in times of doubt. And in this life that we live with this huge, big mind game that we're playing with ourselves, it is crucial to pick ourselves up because no one's coming to save us. No one's coming to pick you up from the mud when you're down. You have to rely on yourself and you have to rely on your past experiences to keep going forward and move forward and get up. I'm sure that anybody who's watched up to this point can recall 1 to 2 experiences that have really shaped who you are, that have really shown how much further you can push than you think. Those are the moments you need to store in your mind in order to get hot during times of need. It's sort of like a wildfire. So now that we understand that life's one big head game and we have to consistently keep ourselves focused in order to win, let's talk about what happens when we consistently find ourselves in the chaos and ultimately what happens to us mentally when we voluntarily put ourselves through hell. Number 3, when was the last time that you went through a hard time in your life? Whether it was physically or mentally, have you ever noticed that afterwards you feel like, wow, that shit sucks so bad, I can deal with anything if I went through that? Like you sort of develop like a tolerance to the pain of the world by going through shit like that. And the reason being is because the mind has become callous to certain events. David Goggins consistently preaches this. Do something that sucks every day so that way your mind becomes calloused. If you do not consistently push yourself, the mind becomes uncalloused, and the more undisciplined, the more things suck. I'm at the point in my life where I'm miserable. I'm working all day doing shit I hate for the most part, besides this maybe. I'm consistently working out hard. I'm consistently getting rejected. I've gone through so much shit that sucked that there's not too many things that could throw me off my loop. If something crazy happens in my life, I don't even really trip on it no more. Like, you know, since 2023 happened to me, which if you guys haven't seen that video, go watch it. I can tell you guys my whole story. I don't really get too caught up in the bad shit. Like today, for example, I went to work, right? And we were supposed to have our annual pay raise. These dudes told me you're gonna get a 2% raise for the year. I said, to what? 2% of $100? What you mean 2% raise an hour? What the fuck does that mean? This is exactly why I work as hard as I do for myself, because at the end of the day, most companies aren't gonna give you what you want in this world. And I just realized, you know what? This is exactly why I work as hard as I do for myself. And if my mind wasn't calloused, I might have said some crazy shit. I might have said, you know what? Keep that fucking garbage, you fucking goofy. I might have said something crazy, or I might have just reacted really badly to it. But I'm so used to the bullshit that there's not too much that can throw me off my P's and Q's. Like, someone acts weird, someone acts shady towards me, all right, cool, I'm off you. If a girl curves me, ghosts me, or acts stupid, bye-bye, I don't care no more. And it's sad that I had to get to this point where I'm that numb to the pain, but it's ultimately made me more effective. Like, when you go through hard shit, you're gonna become a better person. Like, good times make weak men, hard times make better men. And that's how I look at my life these days. You have to live your life on the edge. Like, a lot of you guys sit at home at night praying that you become a better man who has what he wants. And then when God gives you these challenges of going through pain mentally, physically, you break down, you quit because you're like, this is just not worth it. Realize that the man you want to be is going to require a lot more than what you think, and it's going to cost a lot more than you think. I work my ass off to be here, and I live downtown in a loft. I'm doing great for myself, but the amount of pain and suffering that I went through to get to this point, and to be honest with you guys, it sometimes doesn't feel worth it. I'll be honest with you, I feel like I deserve a lot more, which is why I continue to work. Life is gonna suck. It's gonna be miserable. It's gonna be hard. But do the things that people won't do now, so that way you can do what others can't do later. And so there you have it. The best pieces of advice that David Goggins gave me. David Goggins, if you watch this somehow, I appreciate everything you've done to this point. You're a catalyst to what men should be these days. Hardworking, disciplined, mind your business. And I will continue to just preach your message throughout my own as I get older and older and older. With that said, my name is KJ the Black Ace. I make the best self-improvement content in the space. Follow me and subscribe. I'll holler back at you guys. Peace.